Hey X-Fans, it's Riley, and I'm here with another episode of my X-Men Readathon. So, last we left off, I was talking about the end of the first X-Men Omnibus. So that book that went through the Stan Lee run and then some of the Roy Thomas run. So now I've got I know I don't have the dust jacket on it, that's in the living room, the second X-Men Omnibus. I've been reading, as you can tell, I've been reading this one now, and I've gotten through about 2 weeks plus of material, so from issue 32 through 48. There's a pretty good amount of material for me to talk about here. So, first of all, Roy Thomas still writing for these issues. We do get Werner Roth on some of the artwork, but a lot of it you get, let's see, Don Heck actually is doing a lot of the artwork now. For a lot of these issues. So there is a little bit of a change. There's not a huge difference between Werner Roth and Don Heck, but I think that out of the two, I prefer Don Heck, so it's pretty cool to have them. It's really proven in this book that Roy Thomas is better when he's not trying to create new characters. It starts out with a Juggernaut arc. We get the return of the Juggernaut, which was pretty cool. So it's better when Thomas isn't trying to create any new characters, any new villains, because honestly, all the villains that he wound up creating in the material from that first omnibus were really just unspectacular. And I know I've mentioned before that he does wind up creating a few characters that are really noteworthy later on in his run. But as of now, he hasn't really created anything, but he has done some interesting stuff with characters that Stan Lee created. The majority of what I read in this book winds up being related to the Factor 3 story arc. Factor 3 being a group of villains which mysteriously were introduced back in the first omnibus, that was from the arc where they introduced the Banshee. And they have, something mysterious is going on with them. You don't really know what they're doing. You don't really know who they are until in this volume. So we get some good material with that, and it's pretty interesting. But first, we get a couple issues of Juggernaut stuff, and I'm gonna try and hold this book up and show off some pages and stuff, so you can see some of the nice looking artwork in here. Some more stuff with the Juggernaut. And you get some other characters, some other villains in there for a few issues. You get, I think, the Cobalt Man reappears. Cobalt Man having been in some of the last issues of the previous stuff. There's Mole Man in this issue. Skip forward a little bit. We get the return of the Banshee. And this is where they start going towards Factor 3. They start dealing with them. And they had Spider-Man come in for an issue where they thought that Spider-Man was a member of Factor 3. So you get to see him interacting with the X-Men. So there's a lot of cool stuff in here. But going forward, we get to the Factor 3 stuff. You find out that Factor 3 has enlisted a lot of the various villains from the X-Men's past. So they were kind of using the Juggernaut at first, and I don't think that he was really privy to what was going on with them. And later on, you find out that a lot of other villains, like Mastermind and the Blob and Unus the Untouchable and the Vanisher, are all part of Factor 3 as well. And in addition to them, there's this guy, the Changeling, and then their leader, the Mutant Master, I believe his name was. And essentially it boils down to this guy that gathers all the mutants together and he just wants to take over the world. It turns out that Mutant Master is actually not of this earth, but he's some weird alien disguised as a humanoid form. So that was really interesting. It was kind of an interesting arc, but what I really liked about it was seeing all those old villains brought back together because it showed, they're not done yet, and that, that was really the best part of it. And then after this, the Factor 3 arc ends, you get the issue where they, or not after it ends, but the final issue of the whole Factor 3 thing actually shows us, if I can pull it out, oh, it was the one right before this, when the X-Men get their new costumes. So that's really noteworthy. You get to see them get out of those yellow and blue costumes that make them, more of a uniform, and they get instead the more individual. Cyclops is all blue with the yellow undies and the yellow booties and gloves. Jean Grey gets her green tunic with the yellow mask, gloves, and boots. Beast has a red and blue costume. Iceman loses the cuffed boots that he had before, and Angel gets a yellow with red costume. So they all get these more original, not original, but individual-looking costumes instead of all having the same costume between all of them. As well, they start doing a backup feature in every issue that kind of explains the origins of the X-Men, which is really interesting because you get to see how Professor X started it all and how he started recruiting the X-Men. You get to see Cyclops and how he, first got recruited by Professor X. And at the point where I've read through all of Cyclops' origin, and I've read through all of Iceman's origin. What I really enjoyed about those origin story backup features is with Cyclops, you get to find out about him getting his optic blast powers. And personally, ever since I was, when I was younger, and watching the X-Men cartoons and stuff, I always assumed that mutants were born with their powers. I never really thought about them developing over time. So I always had this thought of how does Cyclops work? Was he just born and all of a sudden out of his mom's womb these optic blasts came out? How did that even work? Of course, later on I realized that it was something that developed, but I still thought so what happened? One day did he just he's just outside, or he wakes up in the morning and all of a sudden his eyes just shooting lasers? I wonder how that went. That had to have been weird. But it's actually explained in these backup features. And it shows that, he was going to an optometrist because he felt a headache or pain in his eyes. I forget exactly what it was. And he noticed that his eyes were glowing. The optometrist noticed that Scott's eyes were glowing and reacted by giving him new corrective lenses that had fragments of ruby quartz in them so that he could sustain that, the red glowing in his eyes and, alleviate that headache and all that. So this was, that was really cool to find out it was actually an optometrist that fixed it for him. And then Professor X goes on to recruit him for the X-Men, and you see that, and then it goes forward with them recruiting Iceman, and you see X give Cyclops his first costume, and it has, the way that he does it shows you how his visor works, and he has an extra button to open it up on his palm. You see him fight a guy called the Living Diamond. It was pretty interesting. So aside from that, then you get into these little single issue stories where the X-Men are facing off against a couple of various villains like Frankenstein, which is kind of random, and then it comes to a head where Magneto comes out again, and that's always exciting. And so Magneto comes out again. He's actually once again recruited Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch, and Quicksilver goes toe-to-toe with the X-Men, and they confront him, and they're like, what happened, man? I thought you joined the Avengers. I thought you were a good guy. And he says, Quicksilver doesn't work for anyone. I do what I want to do. I follow my own path. And this is really interesting. This story arc was interesting because it's the first point in which you get that Magneto is, fighting for mutant rights because he's creating this utopia for mutants, and Quicksilver is you should come with us and you should join us with Magneto because he'll make a place that's good for mutants. So that's really interesting. That was something that I really enjoyed seeing. And then, of course, because Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch defected from the Avengers, you see the Avengers going after them as well, and there's a little bit of a clash between the Avengers and the X-Men. And it's the first inter-series crossover, and you see an issue of the Avengers inside of this book. So, that's all the interesting stuff that I've been seeing. We get some new writers that are coming in, Gary Friedrich and Arnold Drake. I think Friedrich was writing a lot of the backup features. Or maybe it was Arnold Drake. I don't recall off the top of my head, but we're getting a few more writers in there, so it's some interesting stuff. I think at the point where I am, just double check myself. And we've got Arnold Drake is now writing. We've had an issue dealing with the funeral of Professor Xavier, and at that point the X-Men kind of split up because they say that they don't feel like a team anymore. And instead of, being the team of the X-Men in every book, focusing on the entire team, each issue now features, and I'll show you guys this, instead of just saying, the X-Men, it's the X-Men featuring, and then it's like this one has Cyclops and Marvel Girl. Previous one was featuring the Beast and Iceman. So there's, stories where they split up, or solo stories and stuff like that. So there's a lot of cool stuff going forward. Of course, I haven't reached the stuff that I'm really looking forward to, which is the introduction of characters like Polaris and Havoc, and the artwork from Jim Steranko and Neil Adams. So we're still looking forward to getting to that point. I will be completely honest, it is kind of at that point where it's dragging. There's a few big like landmark things that happen in between. I was excited to get to the end of the Factor 3 arc, the introduction of the new costumes, the death of Xavier, stuff like that. So it was all stuff that I was, good points that I was excited to get to. But I feel like there's going to be a lull these next couple weeks of reading before I get to all the cool stuff. So we'll see what happens. As always, I'm always excited to read forward with this, and I'm excited to get through this book. And I'm especially excited to get through the stuff that's after this book, because we all know what happens after this is Claremont's run. So, I hope that y'all enjoyed this video. I hope that you enjoy me talking about these issues every week, or every 2 weeks, however often I can make these videos. As much as I enjoy making them, as much as I enjoy reading up on these classic stories that I've never read before, and, getting my knowledge up about the X-Men. As always, like, comment, subscribe, check out my website, www.theomnibuscollector.tumblr.com. Check out collectedcomicslibrary.com, where I'll be posting articles and where I'll be posting my videos and stuff. Like, comment, subscribe. Comment down below if you have anything to say about the video, any questions about what I talked about in here, or if you generally want to chat. I mentioned in my last video, if y'all want to, you can read along with me, and then maybe we can have a little bit of a discussion down below. If you guys have anything to say about the issues that I read, if you're reading along with me, could be fun. So, thanks for watching. Keep watching, and I hope you guys are enjoying the videos. Thanks for being cool. I'll see y'all next time.